All right, so we're live and we're back. Um, Yay, I get so excited about Wednesday mornings now. I'm April. If you're new to The Positive Effect, welcome. And if you're coming back, welcome back. I'm so excited to have you. This is a weekly live broadcast on LinkedIn that I've started, and it really is to discuss retail, leadership. A positive effect of a great leader cannot be understated. And, we're going to talk about retail, like I said, careers, leadership, and all that great stuff. And I am so blessed, really, to have an amazing network of people to be able to bring on this weekly live. So today I am thrilled to bring Lisa Amlani. I'm going to say your name right, Amlani.
Perfect.
The Positive Effect. And we're going to be talking about your career, about leadership, asking you questions about the future, and all, like, just diving into content. So I can't wait to get started. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. My favorite subject.
Yay, mine too. So I'm going to ask you, Lisa, just to get started, like, tell us a bit about your career, your story through retail. Everybody that watches these lives are generally in our retail community, and they love hearing about, people's careers, where they started and where they ended up to. So if you can just walk us through that a little bit, that'd be awesome.
Sure. So I have been in this wonderful world of retail for more than 21 years. I started in sales, actually, on the sales floor at Harrods, which I loved. It was amazing.
I did not know that.
Yes. I started at Harrods, and I actually started selling for Ralph Lauren, and I was also selling Armani Collezioni and Donna Karan Signature and some Versace. It was all part of that sales floor, and I was part of the I guess you work on the floor before you go into the buying office, so I was kind of training to understand the customer, and it was incredible. So that's really where I started my career. Then I moved into product design, where I designed bags, like who doesn't love bags and luggage. And I did that also based in the UK. My claim to fame is that I designed the bags for FIFA World Cup 2002.
Wow.
Which totally ages me, which is great. Thank God for lighting. And then I moved back to Canada, and I started my buying career officially at Holt Renfrew. And I was an MA there, and then I moved on to work for Clemonico for the Caban stores, which I miss so much. And I bought all the women's wear and accessories. Loved it. Worked in a few more retailers. And then what did I do? Oh my God. Then I did some consulting, which was great. I did a lot of wardrobing, styling, merchandise planning, that sort of thing. And then, oh my God, my career is so long. Then I
love it. We've got time. That's why we're featuring people's careers.
Oh, good.
It's so interesting where people started. And especially, I think we have a lot of people that follow us that come from shop floor. Like I was from shop floor. So I love hearing that you came from shop floor, because they're always like, how do I branch out? How can I do different things? So this is amazing. So keep going. I love it.
Good. Okay, just a few more. Then I went back to Ralph Lauren, and I was one of the, I think, third people hired for Ralph Lauren Canada. I was the merchandising production manager, so I had to have an understanding of product development, product design, buying, merch, that sort of thing, helping to actually get product into Canada to sell to our Canadian customers.
Wow.
I moved back to the UK in 2014. Where I went back to Ralph Lauren, actually, and was the buying lead for UK, Ireland, Scandinavia, the Baltics, also France for a short period of time, and then moved back to Canada in 2018. Started my consulting career. I was working with Accenture in their retail strategy group. I can't say who my clients were, but I will tell you that they just launched a fabulous shoe yesterday. And now in November, I just started my own retail consulting practice. So I do a lot of mentorship, a lot of writing, a lot of connecting with amazing people like you, and just working with retailers and brands, helping them to leap into this new retail world.
That's amazing. You know what? It's so funny. So I have an identical twin sister, and her first job as well was in Harrods. So, and it sounds like timing was around the same time. So that's
I'll
so
have to talk to her.
fascinating. Yeah, that was a great time in London to work for designer brands. I started off in a little tiny shop called Provito on South Molton Street that sold
Oh, no
Versace.
way.
Yeah,
Just by Selfridges. I
yeah,
love
that
that
was
street.
my that
Yes,
was
yes.
first retail job. Yeah, it was. I just learned so much there, and I started off as a salesperson, and that was my first management job. So yeah, we were probably there at the same time. Who knew?
Amazing. I
Such
think
a
so. I bet we were. I bet we were.
Hi, Fabiani. Nice to see you join the feed. Welcome. So I'm going to dive right into some content because I want to pick
Sure.
your brain and ask you lots of questions so that everybody watching this can
Okay.
get as much out of you as they can. And, my aim with this is to really make it so that people can learn, right? So I love that story of shop floor to where you progressed in your career and now owning your own business, which is amazing because that's so inspiring for so many people. Hi, Sylvia. Sylvia, what a great journey. She also worked for Accenture.
Oh my God. We'll connect later.
That's amazing. So, okay, so you told me a little bit about your career in retail, and I always have my notes because I like to be prepared because I can talk. So, I always say the positive effect of a great leader makes a huge difference. And I write, I wrote a book about it, right, about my career in retail and positive leadership. So, what is your style of leadership? And what has made you successful as a leader? Because you've had some really great growth in your retail career.
Yeah, I would say the number one thing that I've taken throughout my career is empathy. I think empathy is something that, I hold so dear to my heart. And I think I take that into all of my relationships, but also in my leadership style. I think having an understanding of what people go through, how everybody is different. It was actually one of the best advice I ever received from one of my VPs was that you can't lead everyone in the same way, and everyone is different, so you can't lead everyone in the same way. And having that empathy and understanding of not only all the buying assistants that I've had and the junior buyers and what they have to do, understanding the way that they work and how they can excel and push them to be set up for success. I would say that's my leadership style in a nutshell.
And I just want to say hi to Indira because she's just joined. I used to work with her many moons ago. So great to see you, Indira, on the feed. So empathy, I think that's, it was funny. I was having a conversation with somebody last year and they predicted that there would be empathy coaches in the future needed.
Ooh, that's good.
It was really interesting, like an interesting concept. So and somebody reached out to me the other day and said, April, I'm really working on communication. And I think empathy is the one that I want to really work on this year. So if you were going to coach somebody on how to develop their empathy, what would that look like? What advice would you be giving somebody?
I mean, I can really only come from the places that I've been to. And I think because I've lived in so many places, I've seen a lot of things. I think having that, big world view, I think is so important. Seeing people fail, seeing people succeed, just all walks of life. I think that really grounds you. And I believe that's a great place to start. Is really having a good understanding of what people go through, because it's not all about work, and it's so much more than that, especially in retail. You're there to build relationships, not only with your colleagues and who you work for and who you work with, but especially your customers. Everything is built around the relationships with your customers. And not only your customers, but your salespeople. They're your front line. And being a buyer, that's something that I really, really took to heart and stressed. I involved them in my buys. Before I would do my buys, I would go to my flagship stores, and they loved it because they felt like they were being heard, and I was letting them give buy-in because they're really the ones who are in front of the customer. Also my visual merchandising teams, because they would travel all around the UK and Ireland, and so important for me to understand, what are they seeing? How are they seeing people interact with the product? Do they like the product? Do they like what I've chosen? Super important in terms of cross collaboration with all your teams, marketing included.
100%.
People love to work in silos in this industry.
100%.
As you know.
I could talk about that all day. Hi, Morale. Hi, Roxanne. Nice to see you guys join. And you know what? I have so much respect for you guys as a buying team, because I always said I was the one that just, had to sell what you gave me. So I could like merchandise it, talk to the customer, romance it. But like my first experience of buying was when I worked at that store back in the day in London, Provito, that sold all the Italian stuff. And I remember going to, and I don't know if you remember this, is going to date me too, but I remember going to the Iceberg showroom and we were designing iceberg printed jeans, and the owner asked me, "Can you come with me, April? You sell, you help the customers. Can you, pick the the prints?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, that sounds exciting." So there I go. I'm 20 years old, right? What do I know? And I'm like in the showroom with all of these prints, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I am so overwhelmed right now. I can't." So then I was like nervous. So then I was like really nervous. I picked a few. And then when it came into the store, I would have this overwhelming feeling of like, oh my God, it has to sell, it has to sell, because I picked it. And I was like, after that experience, I said, I never want to be a buyer. Like, that's not my jam. Like, I will stay on the customer side and sell whatever you give me. So I have so much respect for you guys. And I think that cross collaboration is like, so important, right? So what you're talking about, going in and talking to the salespeople, sales associates and the managers and all that kind of stuff, super important. Like, so I'm going to dive into some more questions. I know I just, but I've got some more questions. So what I want to ask you as well is, well, we'll go to this question because this is actually what we're talking about right now. How can we embrace more productive ways of working together? Because I think you just said it. You said silos are real. What people do. How do we collaborate together? My experience was always the fields did better when we did collaborate together. So how can we embrace more productive ways of working together cross-functionally in the retail environment?
I think that's an awesome question, especially now where retail technology is just, leaps and bounds right now. Moving through teams, especially, let's just look at consumers and how they've evolved and how shopping has evolved. So translating that to the shop floor once, we get through this lockdown life, which, I hope will be soon. And not only will retail technology play like a huge part in how sales teams on the shop floor will converse with their consumers and have different sort of like clienteling and how they use live stream and technology to actually speak to their customers, but also using that technology to have real two-way conversations with their buying teams, with their marketing teams, with their visual merchandisers. So I think that technology is actually going to play a huge, huge role for the sales teams, which is something that I feel like I haven't really seen. When I was in London working at Ralph Lauren, I have to say that I gave everybody on the sales floor my phone number so they could send me photos. I had that communication because I needed it. I wanted it. I felt feedback was important, especially if something didn't sell. If something didn't sell, that was like, oh my God, what can I do? How do I help style it? Do I sell it? Do I go to get on the floor? Like, what can I do? And that two-way communication was so key for me. But if I could have had that with like my phone with an app or something and talking to my sales teams in Scandinavia, in Oslo, in Galerie Lafayette or wherever, it would have been game-changing for me. So, but you guys, whoever is working on a sales floor now, you guys are so lucky because technology is coming. And it's going to make your life so much easier.
When I was at David's Tea, we introduced, I'm going to give them a little plug right now, Nudge, because, and I introduced this app because of that reason, so that the frontline people could communicate directly to us. Because I found when I was as I grew in role, unfortunately, and I say this a lot in the book, and I do coach leaders on this, is your title goes before you when you grow into a role, right? Like when you become a senior or a VP or something like that. And then when you come into stores, people are like, oh, it's going to be so great. And like, you get this filtered feedback kind of thing. It's like all rosy and shiny. And it's not, because you're looking at the numbers. You're like, no, it's not all rosy and shiny. Like, give me the real deal. And I always remember being the store manager and always wanted to give that honest feedback. So that's why I introduced it, because I felt like sometimes feedback was getting kind of like polished as it was coming up the chain, and they were more concerned about 100%. How they acted and how they looked.
Yes.
Versus what was being said or being perceived as negative. And I always said, well, all feedback is constructive. So we introduced this app where they could like directly, and what I actually asked the buying team to do was, I said, post next season's line, like 5 of your best sellers, and have the field vote on it. And we did it a few times, and it was really successful, actually. It was really honest. They were like, yeah, we can sell this. Yeah. So I think that's a way that they can collaborate together, right? What you're saying with technology, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how many PowerPoints did I receive from my visual merchandising teams? And I felt so bad for them, because they would take all these pictures, come back to the office after they've done, they're traveling all over the UK in some cases, come back to the office, put these big PowerPoints together, give me this big package. I'm like, no, just like text me, let's react quickly. Because things change so fast. Yeah. So and all that work.
I was actually on Clubhouse last night, which is a new app, and we were having a retail innovation conversation. I was like, this is fascinating. Like, people are joining the panel and talking about innovation, and I was like, something even like that, like where you could have a voice, like you could have a voice thing, and you could have different things. Yeah. People conversating about the product and things like that. So it's really cool. Okay, I'm coming back to my list of questions because. Okay. I want to ask you so we can learn from you. So share a time that you failed and what you learned. I love asking leaders.
Oh my God. This is a good question. I mean, as a merchant, I think that failing just comes with the job, because, there's a lot of guesswork, obviously, and you buy with your gut, which you should not do, by the way. You want to use data, you want to use technology, you want to use predictive analytics, which sadly is still not being used in buying teams right now. Right. But an example of failing really is when your collection just didn't work, or there were, these great key items that you bought that are in marketing. That's the worst, and they don't sell. That to me, that's a huge mistake. But it's not really a mistake. Like, you can't control everything. Yeah. But you can definitely learn from, how much you buy. And I think that's a direct reflection on what's happening in the fashion industry right now. Overbuying and just like over inventory. I think it's such a grave problem that we have, that we've conditioned our customers or end consumers to shop sale, shop markdowns, shop every month we have a new drop and a new season dropping, new product assortment. No, we need to train our consumers to think differently. And that's how we'll train the retailers and the buyers to produce less, because everybody is overbuying. They're buying for markdown in some cases. So I think that's a mistake that we all have, that we all play in the game, where if you're a planner or if you're a buyer, you're overbuying. And to me, that's a huge mistake.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, I've been the one that's had to deal with that. I've seen like a lot of brands though say they're going to like slow down, like high-end brands. My experience is only a little bit in luxury, like at the beginning and kind of somewhere in the middle, but like they're slowing down the collection drops and kind of like making the collections longer, which kind of makes sense as well. And like working from home for the last year, obviously, your whole attire is kind of changing, right? Like I live now every day, like my favorite. I never wore them before unless I was working out. That was it. So it's changing and evolving a lot, right?
Exactly. And the shift in categories is such a good point you bring up, because I can't imagine being a buyer last year, or sorry, the year before, because you usually buy a year ahead. Yeah. Seeing all that inventory sitting in my stores and I can't move it because my stores are closed. So, and of course you're buying like, all categories, because that's how you plan. You buy jeans, you buy tops, you buy blazers. Yeah. No, nobody's wearing that right now. So what happens to all that product? All that inventory, all that waste.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, like going back to like what you talked about earlier, just the associates in the store, like I was thinking the other day, I was talking to another retail leader and I was like, okay, what the magic of was being in sales and operations was being able to do drop-in visits at the weekend and like just kind of like So come by the
Yes,
store and just kind of see what's going on. And now with, especially in Canada, we're in Canada, right? Not in the US so much, or maybe
right.
other parts of the world, but in Canada, there's been serious lockdowns. And we were like, how do you do drive-by visits? And how do you get that customer feedback? And
Yeah,
hey, Marianne, nice to see you. Hey, Morale, nice to see you. Nice to see you, Roxanne, as well. And Angela, just saying
yeah,
hey to everybody. So like, yeah, it's really interesting because it's kind of like, how do you do those visits? How do you
yeah,
reach out to those customers and find out what's going on? Wherever I worked, I always wanted a customer survey and I always wanted an employee survey so that I could gather that feedback. So important,
right.
especially now because, yeah, if you're buying a year, I was always fascinated by that. You buy a year in advance and then look at what's happened. So I think agility as
Yeah.
well is going to be really key, right, going forwards, don't you think?
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
definitely. I think, everybody hates that word, agile and pivot, and but it's true. Like you have to have that flexibility and that to be fluid.
Yeah,
Whether it's the depths of inventory you're buying, or is it the actual categories you're buying into. So having that customer validation closer to the time of let's say production, or when you are finalizing your line and your assortment, that is really key. And having somebody that is local in your regional markets, whether it's your sales teams that you collaborate with, or if you have a decentralized buying model and you have regional buyers, you need somebody in that local market to be speaking to your customers all the time.
yeah,
And having that collaboration even with your customer during line planning is, I think it's a phenomenal way to operate your business, because then you're not only closer to market, but you're faster to the marketplace with what the customer actually wants, almost in real time. Yeah, I don't know if real time is possible, but with made to measure it is, right. But
yeah.
definitely you're more closer to the customer,
Mm.
and that's why collaboration is just so key across all levels, and across teams, and especially with the customer.
Yeah, 100%. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
always like I would always say to the field leaders, because they're really busy in the field and they're really focused on like so many different tasks that come up in their world, and they're fighting fires with people because 80% of the population generally in a big retailer is in the field, in the stores, in leadership.
yeah,
Ron was talking about that last night on the Clubhouse Retail Innovation Chat. But it's really like how those retail leaders in the field. I'm like, pick up the phone, call, like, because you would want that, right? So that has to be encouraged.
yes,
There's going to be new ways of working going forwards and what that looks like. And I know you had put like a question down to me about innovation in retail and technology.
yeah,
And I just think, number one, listen to your customer, listen to your employees. Like on that innovation chat last night, it was all about,
yeah,
all this complicated stuff. And I was like, how about innovating the way that the stores are measured on success? How about changing the way that the performance appraisals are done on a yearly basis, what that looks like, like how about changing certain things that have been like a certain way for such a long time. So I'm excited to see how that's going to evolve as well in the future. And I actually asked somebody the other day, are you actually doing performance appraisals on a year where everybody's been off work and closed? And they said, yeah. And I was like, are you changing the process? And they were like, that's a good question. I was like, that kind of needs to look a bit different. But okay, another
yeah.
question for you. What advice would you give to someone who wants to follow in your footsteps? So we heard your amazing career at the beginning, from Harrods on the shop floor all the way to like leading Ralph Lauren, Europe buying team. So what advice would you give to somebody if they're listening to this and like, oh my God, this is inspiring me, this is motivating me, how can I follow in her footsteps?
Well, I would say networking, network, network, network. With my program, I went to Ryerson School of Fashion, and the one thing that was super important for us, because it was also part of our grades, was to network and to intern. Intern, network, use LinkedIn. I mean, such a great tool. Use social media, talk to people. If you want to work in buying, I would say definitely work on the shop floor. Understand product assortments, understand what it is to manage those assortments through each season, and
Yeah.
then talk to the buyers. So definitely network, relationship build, and get on that sales floor.
Yeah, that's what I would say. We're coming up to 25 minutes. We usually wrap up just under 30 minutes. And I know that you're like,
Okay.
oh, my battery might die. It's like the new world of technology, and we're embracing being, having
I
humility and
know.
not thinking everything's perfect, because it's not. After last week, I learned that. So,
Right.
I think that there's some really golden nuggets in what you've shared today, and I just really appreciate you jumping on and being a guest on the Positive Effect, and really
My pleasure.
helping us bring this retail conversation to life. That people
Yes.
that have actually done the job in the field, in the offices, have actually done it. Because that's where I felt like
Yeah.
when I was growing up through retail, I was always searching, but we didn't really have the means that we have now, like to have lives like this, or to have that, social experience with people, networking, which now is
Yeah.
so readily available on things like this.
Exactly.
So I
Yeah.
think working is key, but I'm just super grateful, Lisa, for you joining. And, I was going to say, do you want to plug what you're doing now? Like, what are you doing now?
Yes,
You're doing
absolutely.
group, right?
Yes, so I have a consulting firm called Retail Strategy Group. Check us out online. And I also have a media channel where we're creating content, and we released our newsletter last week. You can look it up, themerchantlife.com. And tomorrow's edition actually is talking about sales, which hopefully we're going to get you to give us the quote.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
just really understanding what sales teams have to go through. And I share some of my insights on what I went through and advice forward. So
Yeah,
yeah, merchant life.
and I love that you're doing that, because again, it's just more information, more knowledge, more sharing. People can read. And I read your newsletter last week, and it was
I'm
awesome.
great.
Keeps us informed, right? Like, we need to stay informed so that we know what's going on in the
Yeah.
world. Retail is such a busy job that our heads are down, plowed into it. And then when you get home, you're like, oh, like, whew, got a lot done today. But like, these
And then,
snippets of information are great. They're super helpful.
yeah, and I think the key is having that retail information from a retail insider who's actually done the job.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of us out there that I know of, and I'm hoping to meet more. But I do think that we can read all the retail news all day, but getting some insights and understanding my point of view or your point of view as somebody actually doing the work, I think is just brilliant.
Yeah, and that's what I say. That's why I went off and built Retail U, because I was in that job training leaders and managers all day, and I knew what they wanted. And I was, so it's like, yeah, I might not have a traditional education background, but I trained thousands of leaders and succession planned them all the way up from the bottom, all the way up to director level and above, right? And so, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to reinvent and create things that the front line want. At the end of the day, customer experience, no matter what you say, customer experience is always, in my mind, going to be the driver of brand loyalty, because people build brands, right? They just do. You have one experience that's great with a person and one not so great. You remember about that person, and the effect of leaders on people cannot be underestimated at all. Like, anybody watching this, if you're leading a team, your effect and your impact on those people, no matter what team you lead, it matters every day. So think about it, and think about having a positive effect on everybody that you have an interaction with, and lift them up, because now more than ever, everybody needs this, right? We need it, you need it, I need it, we all need it. Amazing.
Agreed. I love it.
Right. We're gonna wrap up, Lisa. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to share?
No, I think that, technology, we all need to embrace it on all levels. And I think that is really going to be a game changer. That's really the biggest advice I have, is just embrace the change. Change is hard. Nobody likes change, but, just embrace it, change your mindset, and, think positive.
Yeah. And I always say change takes rigor and courage, right?
Yes.
Courage to stand up and say, I need the change. Courage to embrace the change and be maybe the one leading the charge. And then second of all, rigor, because change doesn't happen without rigor and follow through, and a little bit of patience to see what's going to pay off in the end. Because retail was so reactionary. We want that sales comp today, and if it doesn't happen, everybody goes in a spin. And that's not always the good best way to deal with things. So anyway, we're coming up to 29 minutes. I want to honor everybody's time. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Share this if you enjoyed this conversation. Share it on your network, share it with your retail family and community, because we want more people to join this conversation every week. And we'll be bringing on leaders just like Lisa to have these amazing. So thank you so much.
I love it. Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
All right. Bye. Oops.